Morning arrived quietly beneath the desert. Thin beams of sunlight filtered through the stone shafts above, filling the underground city with a warm golden glow. Birds fluttered among the trees growing in the hidden gardens, and the gentle sound of flowing water echoed through the empty streets. For a moment, it was easy to imagine that the city was alive again. Dr. Amara Kofi stood on the balcony of the royal palace looking over the silent city. This place was not built only to survive, she said softly. It was built to inspire. Professor Elias nodded. The people who lived here believed that beauty and knowledge should exist together. After a simple breakfast, the team resumed their exploration. The royal palace still contained many unopened rooms. Captain Idris led the way while Zara scanned each hallway for hidden chambers. Most rooms held beautiful artwork, carved furniture, and ceremonial objects. Then Zara stopped. Her scanner displayed a large empty space behind one of the palace walls. There shouldn't be a room here, she said. Captain Idris examined the wall closely. It looked solid. Amara noticed something unusual. One carved stone was shaped differently from the others. It carried the symbol of an open book surrounded by 8 stars. She gently pressed it. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then a low grinding sound echoed through the palace. The wall slowly slid aside. A narrow staircase appeared. Cool air drifted upward. No one spoke. They switched on their lights and carefully descended into the darkness. The staircase seemed endless. Finally, it opened into a gigantic underground chamber. The team stood frozen. Before them stretched the largest library they had ever seen. Thousands of stone shelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling. Clay tablets, scrolls, leather-bound books, and carved wooden boxes filled every shelf. Beautiful statues of scholars stood between the aisles, each holding an open book. At the center of the hall stood a magnificent stone table carved with a map of the ancient world. Professor Elias removed his hat in respect. This is beyond anything I ever imagined. Amara walked slowly toward one of the shelves. She carefully picked up a scroll. The material was remarkably well preserved. She gently opened it. Inside were detailed drawings of stars, planets, and constellations. Another scroll described irrigation systems capable of turning dry land into fertile farmland. Nearby, Zara discovered engineering plans showing bridges, underground reservoirs, and advanced water filtration systems. They understood hydraulic engineering thousands of years ago, she said in amazement. Another section contained medical knowledge. Drawings explained how to treat broken bones, clean wounds, prepare herbal medicines, and perform simple surgeries. Amara looked around the enormous chamber. The greatest treasure of this city was never its gold. It was its knowledge. Malik walked toward a large stone globe standing in one corner. Around its base were carved words. Amara translated them carefully. Knowledge is the light that no storm can bury. The room fell silent once again. Captain Idris smiled. That may be the wisest thing I have ever heard. For the next several hours, the team photographed every document they could safely examine. They refused to remove anything unnecessarily. This history belongs to everyone, Amara reminded the team. We are here to preserve it, not to steal it. Far above them, hidden among the palace ruins, Victor Kane watched through binoculars. One of his men approached. What have they found? Victor smiled. Whatever it is valuable. We move tonight. His men quietly unpacked explosives, ropes, cutting tools, and empty crates. They planned to remove every piece of gold they could carry. Back inside the library, Zara noticed another strange discovery. Behind the stone globe stood an enormous bronze door unlike any they had seen before. Instead of locks, it contained 12 rotating stone discs covered in ancient symbols. It looks like a puzzle, she said. Professor Elias studied the carvings. I don't think this door opens with force. It opens with understanding. For hours, the team carefully matched symbols from the ancient map, palace inscriptions, and library walls. At last, the final stone disc clicked into place. A deep vibration echoed through the chamber. The bronze door slowly opened. Behind it was a circular room unlike any they had seen. The ceiling sparkled with thousands of tiny crystals that reflected sunlight into every corner. At the center stood a large crystal pedestal. Resting upon it was a single golden book. Its cover was decorated with the symbol of the rising sun. Amara approached carefully. She opened the first page. The book told the story of the Azurim. It explained that the kingdom had welcomed merchants, scholars, inventors, and travelers from many distant lands. Instead of conquering other nations, its rulers built schools, libraries, observatories, and hospitals. People came from across the ancient world to learn. The city became famous not because it possessed the most gold, but because it possessed the greatest collection of knowledge. Then the final chapters revealed the truth. Generations earlier powerful earthquakes had shaken the region. The royal council realized the city could not be saved. To protect their knowledge from destruction and invasion, they moved their greatest records into the underground library. When the disaster finally struck, the entrances were sealed. The survivors left the city forever, carrying only the hope that one day wise people, not greedy ones, would rediscover their legacy. As Amara quietly closed the golden book, she whispered, "They never wanted their treasure to belong to one kingdom. They wanted it to belong to the future." Captain Idris looked toward the dark corridor leading back into the palace. His expression suddenly changed. He heard something, very faint, metal scraping against stone. Someone had entered the palace. Without saying a word, he slowly reached for his flashlight. Far above them, Victor Kane and his treasure hunters had begun their move. The peaceful discovery of the lost city was about to become a race against greed. And by the next sunrise, everything would change. The Hall of Knowledge fell silent. Captain Idris raised one hand, signaling everyone to stop moving. The faint scraping sound echoed through the corridor again. Someone was inside the palace. Dr. Amara carefully closed the golden book and placed it back on the crystal pedestal. "Turn off the lights," Captain Idris whispered. One by one, the flashlights went dark. The only light left came from the crystals in the ceiling, casting a soft blue glow across the ancient chamber. Footsteps grew louder. Several shadows appeared at the entrance. Then armed men stepped into the room. Their leader smiled confidently. "Victor Kane." So he said, looking around the magnificent library. The legends were true after all. Amara stepped forward. "This city is a priceless archaeological site. You have no right to be here." Victor laughed. "I didn't cross a desert for history. I came for treasure." His men spread through the chamber, filling crates with golden statues, ancient scrolls, jeweled ornaments, and carved artifacts. Professor Elias shouted, "Stop, those objects belong to humanity." Victor ignored him. "Take everything that shines." Captain Idris quietly positioned himself between the treasure hunters and his team. "If you continue," he warned, "someone will get hurt." Victor drew a pistol. "So be it." Before anyone could move, Malik noticed one of Victor's men striking an ancient stone pillar with a crowbar. A loud crack echoed through the chamber. The entire room shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then another deep rumble rolled beneath the city. Zara looked at the walls in alarm. The structure is becoming unstable. The treasure hunter struck the pillar again. This time, hidden gears awakened. Stone doors slammed shut throughout the palace. Heavy blocks dropped from the ceiling corridors. Ancient mechanisms that had slept for thousands of years suddenly came alive. Victor looked around in surprise. "What did you do?" No one answered. The floor trembled. A section of the ceiling collapsed behind them, blocking the way back. Everyone instinctively stepped away from the falling stones. Captain Idris quickly took control. "Nobody panics. We have to leave now." Zara checked her scanner. There should be another passage beneath the palace. Amara remembered the map inside the golden book. There's an emergency escape route built by the city's engineers. But we have to find it quickly. Victor hesitated. For the first time, fear appeared on his face. The city was no longer a treasure vault. It had become a trap. The two groups hurried through the ancient corridors as the palace continued to shake. Cracks spread across the walls. Statues toppled to the floor. Clouds of dust filled the air. As they entered the royal courtyard, they saw water pouring from broken canals. The carefully designed underground system was failing. Malik pointed toward a carved stone archway. There, above the archway, were ancient words. Amara translated them. The path of wisdom leads to life. Captain Idris pushed against the stone door. It slowly opened. A narrow tunnel stretched into the darkness. Everyone rushed inside. Behind them, another part of the palace collapsed with a deafening roar. The tunnel sloped downward before climbing again. Ancient oil lamps still lined the walls. Beautiful carvings showed families, builders, scholars, and children, not kings, celebrating war, but ordinary people building a peaceful civilization together. Even in the middle of danger, Amara could not help admiring the city's values. They wanted future generations to remember their people, she whispered. They believed every life mattered. Suddenly, Victor's greed returned. As they passed a small treasury, he saw dozens of golden chests. Ignoring the warnings, he ordered 2 of his men to carry them. They are worth millions. Captain Idris turned sharply. Leave them. The city is collapsing. Victor refused. His men struggled under the heavy weight of the treasure. They had barely walked a few meters when the tunnel floor gave way beneath them. The ground split apart. One treasure hunter dropped the chest and barely escaped, falling into the darkness below. The golden chest disappeared into the deep chasm. Victor stared helplessly as unimaginable wealth vanished forever. Captain Idris looked at him. The city has already shown you what matters. Victor lowered his head. For the first time, he realized his greed had nearly cost innocent lives. Without another word, he ordered his men to abandon every crate and every piece of treasure. They left everything behind. The journey continued. Hours seemed to pass as the tunnel twisted beneath the buried city. Finally, Zara saw fresh air flowing through a narrow opening ahead. We are close. The team hurried toward the light. But just before they reached the exit, another violent earthquake struck. The tunnel shook so fiercely that huge rocks crashed from the ceiling. Captain Idris pushed Amara and Zara forward. Go! I will hold them back. Using all his strength, he held a massive stone beam long enough for everyone else to pass safely beneath it. Victor and his men also escaped. At the last second, Captain Idris dove through the opening as the tunnel collapsed behind him. The group stumbled onto the desert surface just as the ground beneath them rumbled one final time. Behind them, the hidden entrance slowly disappeared beneath an enormous wave of shifting sand. Within minutes, the desert looked exactly as it had before. The lost city of Azurim had hidden itself once again. Everyone stood silently staring across the endless dunes. Professor Elias finally spoke. We found one of the greatest civilizations in history, and the desert has protected it once more. Amara smiled gently. No, it allowed us to find exactly what the world needed. She looked at the camera cases, photographs, digital scans, translations, and carefully documented records they had managed to save. The city's greatest treasure had survived, not because it had been taken, but because its story would now be told. Far beyond the endless horizon, the first rays of sunrise spread across the desert. A new chapter in human history has begun. 3 weeks after leaving the desert, the expedition returned home. News of their discovery spread faster than anyone had imagined. Airports were crowded with journalists. Television cameras followed every step the team took. Scientists, historians, and archaeologists from around the world wanted answers. Had they really found a lost city beneath the desert? Dr. Amara Kofi refused to make dramatic claims. Instead, she calmly presented the evidence. Thousands of high-resolution photographs, 3-dimensional maps of the underground city, translations of ancient inscriptions, engineering drawings, medical writings, astronomical records, videos showing the streets, temples, canals, and the Hall of Knowledge. The evidence was overwhelming. There was no doubt. The lost city of Azurim had existed. Within days, museums and universities requested permission to study the discoveries. An international conference was organized, bringing together experts from every continent. Professor Elias stood before the audience and said, "For generations, many believe this civilization was only a legend. Today, we have the privilege of proving that legends sometimes preserve history." The audience erupted into applause. Then Amara walked onto the stage. She held up a copy of one of the translated inscriptions. It says she began, "Knowledge belongs to every generation. Guard it well and let it guide the future." The room fell silent. Those simple words became the symbol of the entire discovery. Meanwhile, Victor Kane faced the consequences of his actions. Authorities launched an investigation into his illegal expedition. Several members of his team admitted they had planned to steal priceless artifacts from the lost city. Victor could have denied everything. Instead, he surprised everyone. He confessed. "I was blinded by greed," he said. "I nearly destroyed something that belonged to the whole world." He agreed to help investigators recover every artifact his team had taken before entering the city. Although he would still face legal consequences, many people believed his honesty marked the beginning of genuine change. Months passed. Researchers worked day and night studying the records from Azurim. They discovered remarkable achievements. Ancient engineers had designed underground reservoirs that conserved water with incredible efficiency. Farmers had developed methods to grow crops in harsh climates. Doctors had recorded treatments for diseases centuries ahead of their time. Astronomers had carefully charted the movements of stars and planets with astonishing accuracy. The more scholars learned, the greater their respect for the forgotten civilization became. History books around the world began adding new chapters about Azurim. Students learned that many remarkable civilizations had flourished in places once overlooked. One afternoon, Amara returned to the museum where her journey had begun. She stood quietly before the weathered stone tablet that had led her to the desert. The same small symbols that everyone else had ignored had changed history forever. Malik joined her. "My grandfather would have smiled," he said. "He always believed the desert was protecting something important." Amara nodded. He was right. The desert wasn't hiding treasure. It was protecting a message. Captain Idris entered the room carrying a small wooden box. "I think this belongs to you," he said. Inside was a copy of the Golden Book from the Hall of Knowledge. The original had remained safely inside the city, but the team had photographed every page before escaping. Its wisdom would never be lost again. Amara smiled. "It does not belong to me. It belongs to everyone willing to learn from it." That evening, the team gathered for dinner. For the first time in months, there were no cameras. No reporters. No speeches. Only friends sharing memories. Professor Elias laughed. "Do you remember when I said we do spend weeks searching for nothing?" Everyone smiled. "I have never been happier to be wrong." The room was filled with laughter. Far away, the desert remained quiet. The wind continued to shape the dunes. No sign of the lost city remained. Only endless golden sand stretched toward the horizon. Deep beneath that silent landscape, the streets of the Azurim rested once more. Its temples remained untouched. Its gardens waited in silence. Its hall of knowledge stood exactly as it had for thousands of years. The city had revealed itself only long enough to remind humanity of an important truth. Civilizations are not remembered because of the gold they possess. They are remembered because of the wisdom they leave behind. Dr. Amara Kofi looked toward the setting sun and smiled. "Our discovery is not the end of the story," she said. "It is the beginning. Somewhere beneath the endless desert, the lost city still waited, not to be conquered, not to be plundered, but to inspire every generation that chose knowledge over greed. And that would become its greatest legacy." 5 years passed. The discovery of the Azurim had transformed the world of archaeology. Universities introduced new courses about the lost civilization, museums displayed detailed replicas of the city's architecture, while documentaries shared the remarkable story with millions of people around the world. Yet one thing never changed. No one returned to disturb the city. Dr. Amara Kofi insisted that the exact location of the Azurim remain a closely guarded secret. The city has survived for thousands of years because it was protected. She told an international council of archaeologists, our responsibility is not to exploit it, but to preserve it for future generations. The council agreed unanimously. Only a handful of trusted researchers knew where the hidden entrance lay, and they vowed never to reveal its location publicly. Instead, they studied the digital records, photographs, and translations recovered during the expedition. The city itself would remain untouched beneath the desert. One morning, Amara received an invitation to speak at a global conference on history and cultural heritage. Scholars, students, scientists, and explorers from every continent filled the auditorium. As she walked onto the stage, the audience rose to their feet in applause. When the room grew quiet, she began. When we started our journey, many people believed we were chasing a myth. She smiled. They were right about one thing. We were chasing a story. But sometimes, stories lead us to the truth. Large screens behind her displayed breathtaking images of Azurims, streets, gardens, temples, canals, and the magnificent Hall of Knowledge. The audience watched in silence. Then Amara displayed the inscription found inside the library. Knowledge is the light that no storm can bury. She looked around the room. That single sentence is the greatest treasure we brought back from the desert. It reminds us that civilizations are remembered not for the riches they collect, but for the wisdom they leave behind. The hall erupted into applause. Months later, schools around the world began teaching the story of the Azurim. Children learned how the ancient city had used engineering to conserve water. They studied its peaceful trade, routes, medical discoveries, and respect for education. Many young students dreamed of becoming archaeologists, historians, engineers, and scientists. The legacy of Azurim was inspiring a new generation. Professor Elias retired from teaching shortly afterward. On his final day, he stood before his students and smiled. When I was younger, he admitted, I believed every great civilization had already been discovered. He paused. I have never been so grateful to be proven wrong. The classroom is filled with laughter and applause. Captain Idris continued protecting archaeological expeditions across the continent. Whenever young explorers asked him about the lost city, he simply smiled. The greatest discoveries are not made by the strongest people. They are made by those who refuse to stop asking questions. Malik returned to his desert home. Each evening, he sat beside the campfire with his grandchildren. They begged him to tell the story again. He always began the same way. Long before I was born, the desert chose to reveal one of its greatest secrets. The children listened with wide eyes, imagining the magnificent city sleeping beneath the golden dune. As for Victor Kane, he dedicated the rest of his life to supporting the protection of archaeological sites. The man who had once searched only for gold now funded museums, conservation projects, and educational programs. He often said, I entered the desert looking for treasure. I left understanding what treasure truly is. One peaceful evening, many years later, Dr. Amara returned to the desert one last time. She climbed the same dune where she had first looked across the endless sea of sand. The wind moved gently across the landscape. No ruins could be seen. No towers. No gates. Only endless waves of golden sand stretching to the horizon. She smiled. Thank you, she whispered. Not because she had found the city, but because the city had changed countless lives without ever asking for recognition. As the sun slowly disappeared below the horizon, the desert grew quiet once again. Deep beneath the sand, the streets of the Azurim rested in silence. Its temples remained untouched. Its gardens still waited patiently. Its hall of knowledge continued to guard the wisdom of an ancient civilization. Perhaps one day, centuries from now, another generation would be ready to learn from it. Until then, the lost city would sleep beneath the desert, protected not by walls, not by soldiers, but by the respect of those who understood its true value. And so the legend came full circle. The city that had once vanished beneath the sands was no longer forgotten. Its greatest gift was never its gold. Its greatest gift was the reminder that knowledge, courage, and compassion are treasures that time can never bury.